I was just so stunned. I didn't even know what to make sense of it, but I felt like it came in and healed me, gave me healing. Well, 2 days later, I went into another meditation, and it wasn't even my purpose to make contact again. I just was in another meditation, and the same Arcturian showed up again. And just very simply, I just said, "Can I know your name?" And when I heard the name, I was even more stunned because it was Vianne, which was my grandmother's name.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here again. Welcome to Ascension Gateway. I am Sharon Sanana Kumara, and today I'm really excited. My guest is Tiffany Rose. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi.
Thank you for being here and chatting with me today.
It's such a joy to meet you and get to talk to you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, thank you. Tiffany and I were introduced, well, this way through a mutual friend, and he thought that I would probably enjoy your story and your energy and what you do in service to the planet, to humanity. And I can already see from your art behind you that, yeah, we have lots to talk about.
Exciting.
Yeah. And you created the art behind you, correct? And you
I did.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I'm going to read your bio, okay? And just give people that are watching a little snippet of where you are at this point in life, okay? And then we'll talk more. Tiffany Rose is an intuitive empath and transformative artist, is committed to raising consciousness. With 20 plus years immersed in psychology, philosophy, and world religions, Tiffany is a Oneness Blessing Giver, healer, Reiki Master, and Spiritual Order of Melchizedek initiate. Whew, I tried to say, wow, that's a mouthful. As of August 2023, she is also a quantum soul guidance and galactic astrology soul reading practitioner, adding new dimensions to her spiritual mastery, offering 70D Arcturian
70D.
70D Arcturian Reiki. Tiffany brings unique and advanced healing modalities to Starseeds and Lightworkers. Currently pursuing Grandmaster levels of Galactic Reiki and Divine Atlantean Alchemy, Tiffany guides others on their ascension journey. Specializing in Chakra Clearing, Galactic Origins, Galactic Meditations, and Soul Purpose Life Path, she offers Galactic Reiki, Spiritual Pendulum Channeling, and connections to the Galactic Family. Her expertise extends to trauma recovery through practices like soul retrieval and womb healing sessions. As a multimedia artist, Tiffany creates healing crystal jewelry, metaphysical kits, and digital galactic art. Certified in life coaching, energy channeling, crystal healing, sound healing, and more. Tiffany also offers celestial ceremonies like Starseed, soulmate or twin flame weddings, or events, as well as spiritual business coaching. Tiffany Rose, a beacon for spiritual transformation. Contact her for readings, coaching, or a voyage into cosmic realms. And your website is intuitivetiffany.rose.com and mystarseedfamily.com. Ooh, yeah. Why are you still here on the planet?
Oh, because my work isn't finished yet.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us are like, why do we have to be here? It's so hard being here. But, we came down for a reason. I say down, from wherever else we were from. Lots of different places. Really, if you look at the soul's journey, it's not just one place that we came from.
Totally. And speaking of journey, can you share a little bit about your background and how you came to be so aware, open and aware of your galactic heritage?
Sure. So you might be surprised to learn that I was born into a cult family, a family that celebrated fundamentalist religion. Both sides of the family very isolated. You don't talk to anyone outside of it. You don't read literature outside of it. So growing up like that, I was literally afraid of the things that I do now. Talking to people off world or channeling or any of that stuff, I was taught to fear it. So in my late 20s, I started attending college classes specifically on world religions because I needed to get through why I was afraid to, of other religions. We would be driving through town and my dad would say, "That's the house of the devil." And I thought he meant it literally. So I took my young children at the time and we went to pretty much every church in town and outside of town, any denomination I could find, any spiritual center, Buddhist monks, the Sikh temple, you name it, we went. Fast forward with all of that knowledge and all the studies I did back then of just really integrating what do other people in the world believe. Around 2020, my mom sent me a YouTube video. Now, my mom's been talking about enlightenment and spiritual teachings since my teen years, so it's normal for my mom to send me stuff that's kind of out there. Sorry, Mom. She sends me this video about starseeds, and it's an Andromedan starseed. And the girl in the video, I mean, she looked like me, she talked like me, she acted like me. Everything in the video was like I was on TV, and I'm like, this is so strange. So that was my introduction to even hearing the term starseed. Like, what is that anyway, right? And the following year, my mom and I attended the Galactic Convention in Mount Shasta, California, the summer of 2021. And it was 2 or 3 days of speeches. You could choose different buildings to go to, but there were some pretty famous speakers there. Alex Collier, I hung out with him. We talked about his cat. Nice. Everybody wanted to swarm him, so I just talked about normal things. Laura Eisenhower was there. Michael Jaco, a lot of big names that anyone who follows galactic things, may have heard of. So I sat there for a few days listening to all of these different speeches, people who had been off world, people who had been in Telos, under Mount Shasta, you name it, abductees, contactees. Yeah. So I learned a lot at that convention about Earth's history and involvement with the galactics, things that had been hidden from us, wars that were happening that we just didn't even realize were even going on. After that, I kind of became a little bit obsessed. I just really wanted to know, like, what does it all mean and how does it apply to me? I started trying to map the stars astrologically by hand. I was really, really trying to figure out, okay, what kind of starseed am I? Because some people said I was Andromedan. I went to the Galactic Convention, and one of the other names that was there was Vivian Chauvet.
Arcturian.
Yes, she told me point blank upon just meeting me that I was Arcturian. And I was still very much attached to being Andromedan. So I was like, okay, what's Arcturian? Well, she led a meditation on that Sunday and invited Arcturians to come down. She said that they were on ships watching over us, and she was just going to invite them to come down for a meditation. I was still a skeptic at this point. I had not seen any beings yet. I was still like, is it real? Is it not? I had all of that background in the cult religion saying like, this is all there is. So I really was, I just had to figure it out. So, the meditation, before I go on to how I was figuring it out, she invited them down. And like I said, I was still a skeptic, but I just closed my eyes and I just said, can I see you? And I saw them in my mind, like 2 or 3 of them, bluish purple, kind of sparkly. The ooh shiny factor. I love anything sparkly. So they were definitely just so beautiful and benevolent. There was nothing, I wasn't afraid. There was nothing fearful whatsoever. So that was like my first time seeing an off-world being, at least that I recognized that I was seeing one or two. After that, I still was skeptic and I was like, did I really see that? So I went to the internet and I'm searching, what does an Arcturian look like? And the pictures that pulled up were very close to what I had seen. So I was like, okay, you didn't imagine that. That's real. So after that, I started trying to map the stars by hand to figure out what kind of starseed I was. And the answer I got just by that, and I spent hours and hours and hours, was that I'm a whole bunch of different types of starseed, not just one. And so I started mapping that for other people too, and helping people figure out which groups they were most connected to. And I stumbled upon a course in Ireland, out of Ireland, called Galactic Astrology. So the title that you had read off was a class that I took from an instructor in Ireland. People join it globally. I learned so much about myself in that course. Aside, I had taken, probably 24 courses around that same time period. Within a year, I was just so immersed. I couldn't stop taking classes. But that one was so immersive. There was so much information. And I started really, really learning about my past lives within that class too. So I had been told about past lives maybe 10 years prior. And I was like, oh, okay. Somebody said I was a queen and I was a this and I was a that. And I was like, cool. I didn't really believe it yet. Well, through the galactic astrology and going deeper into the Akashic records, and stuff just started coming, past life stuff. And people would walk up to me and say, oh, you were this or that, just out of nowhere. So when you hear it 3, 4 times, somebody walking up to you, I started to believe the past lives. Well, as I was channeling to get, the information from the galactic astrology chart and trying to get my own past, I realized that a lot of ancestors were coming through that were also off world. So all this time I had been speaking to, my grandmas is what I thought I was just talking to, my grandmothers. And over time, I realized that they weren't just ancestors lingering off, hanging out near Earth. They were literally beings off world that were still talking to me and saying, oh, by the way, I was your grandma on Earth. So I know it's kind of a long version of how I got started in it, but it just kind of progressed from there. Curiosity took me just deeper and deeper. And then I did this Reiki process with an instructor in Brazil, where she had told me there was etheric fear implantations that they were installed in us, so to speak, before conception. And I was skeptic, like, okay, we got these etheric fear, what? I did the procedure exactly as she said, and all the fear just left me. Like my body changed. I had 3 doctors say something to me right afterwards, like, what did you do? You're different. So I did that process. And then shortly after, I had an ET walk into my room. And I was just like, whoa, and
What kind of ET?
it was an Arcturian again. But this time it wasn't bluish purple. It was like a milky white gray. Not, and still tall, still the same head shape, still adorned the same way. It just so happened that that particular day I was grieving something kind of heavy, like an emotional process, dark night of the soul kind of stuff. And I was just feeling it physically, like the somatics of what was happening, not so much the storyline of, the trauma or whatever, but just feeling what came up in my body. And I just started praying, thank you for healing me. This hurts so much. Thank you for healing me. Next thing I know, somebody's hands are on my head. Now, I had already let go of the prayer and was talking to somebody else, and I felt hands on my head. So they don't have fingers quite like us, but it was kind of like all of a sudden hands were like this on my forehead, and I could feel all this tingling. And when I closed my eyes, I could see it etherically just walk right up, put its hands on my head, like giving me Diksha. Well, when you read my biography or my intro earlier, it was talking about being a Oneness Blessing Giver. Well, in India, they call that Diksha, which is a Sanskrit word. It means benediction. It's basically an energy transference that's supposed to open your pineal gland and really enhance your spiritual centers. Well, that was the first modality I was trained in about 10 years ago. And that's what the Arcturian came in and did, was gave me Diksha.
Wow. Can I share something with you real quick?
Yeah, yeah.
It was last year, 2023. I was just coming up out of sleep, out of my journeys, my soul journeys, and I saw a hand above my forehead that was white and filled with light, long fingers filled with light, and it was like this, and I could actually see the veins in his hand, and it
Whoa.
was up above here, my forehead, and he said to me, "You are moving from the land of the dead into the land of the light." And he infused light in my third eye, where my forehead, my pineal gland, obviously.
Whoa.
I was I felt that, and when you take in a lot of light all at once, I felt anxiety kind of for like 2 days. I couldn't eat or anything. Is that similar to what maybe you were experiencing? Or
I
you
did not feel any anxiety, no fear. I felt safe, benevolence around me. It was literally like getting the Diksha. So my mom is also a blessing trainer and came back and trained. And we had group every week at her house where all of us who were trained would come and do the blessing. And I didn't think it felt any different than my mom placing her hands on my head, giving me Diksha. It was the same
okay?
kind of energy, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
mine wasn't fear. I didn't fear the being at all. Had no fear, but I've experienced like the last 20 years. 20 years ago, I went through a quickening after my NDE, after my head injury, where I was taking in a lot of light, meditation, deep meditation, having clearing lots and lots of stuff. And I started, and when, and I realized that when you take in a lot of light, your shadows are coming up, whatever they are. And so it can be, it can make
Yes,
you feel anxious. So that's,
that makes
because
sense.
my vibration was really revved up. It was really revved up.
Well, and I've heard that if we like Andromedans move so fast in their brain, like they can go, how do I say this? Like if we experienced what they experience off world, it would make us psychotic.
Yeah.
So like getting that big blast of energy, I could see how that would amp you up for a little bit because off world that's normal, but in Earth with 3D, it
Yeah.
would be like so much for the brain. So interesting. Even being able to see the veins, that's an interesting thing to
Hmm.
notice as well.
They were red. The being had red veins, red
Wow.
blood, but his fingers were completely white, and I could see the light within his hand filled with light.
That's cool. That is such a neat experience.
Yeah, yours too. It just reminded me of that. So continue. Sorry, I'm not.
No, no, it's all good. I was just so stunned. I didn't even know what to make sense of it, but I felt like it came in and healed me, gave me healing. Well, 2 days later, I went into another meditation, and it wasn't even my purpose to make contact again. I just was in another meditation, and the same Arcturian showed up again. And just very simply, I just said, "Can I know your name?" And when I heard the name, I was even more stunned because it was Vianne, which was my grandmother's name.
Mm,
And my grandmother was still a participant in the cult religion all the way until she died. And
mm.
now she's coming in as an Arcturian. So I said, "Are you sure?" Looking up, like, "I don't believe you. Are you sure?" And I heard, "Yes, honey," in my grandmother's voice, like she was on Earth. And okay, I believe you, but whoa.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
So since
That confirms my own experiences with my ancestors and my parents, especially, how they've come to me as galactic beings, basically. Yeah.
that gives me chills. That gives me chills. Start asking them what constellation they're on.
Yeah. Well, I know my mother's from the Pleiades, and I believe my dad is Syrian. My stepdad is
Mm.
Syrian. Yeah.
So
My
you already know.
my biological dad, I believe, is Pleiadian too. And I mean, if we look at it from that perspective,
No, that makes perfect sense. I mean, we're all more than just one thing, but
right?
that may be where they're hanging out now, or
Right.
what their station is for their higher self.
Yes. Yeah. And I know that I resonate with the Pleiades quite a bit. even before I understood any of this, I was getting information that I hold a lot of Pleiadian lifetimes within me, life experiences, that type of thing. I also want to say I was at that same conference, by the way.
So we must have seen each other there too.
That's why you look familiar. I told you look familiar.
Well, I was there with my mom, and she kind of looks like me too, so there was two
Okay.
of us. But we both had our heads wrapped, and we were wearing Alibaba Indian pants. So
I'm sure I saw you. Yeah. It was an amazing conference.
it
Continue.
was.
Yeah.
That was kind of the end of the story, other than I've been having other I've been having, like, my clients' ancestors are coming through and telling me what constellation they're on, and then I can go back and find it on their chart and say, you've got an ancestor coming in from right there on your chart. That came later, which, was pretty exciting for me to start getting, talking to beings that are different than just Arcturian, which is Arcturian was the main ones that I had talked to or, had encounters with. But then to have some come in from like Alpha Centauri or Orion, and then telling me that they're related to which side of the family and that it's like a great aunt up, like so specific and everything. I never imagined that I would be talking to off-worlders.
You don't, I mean, we kind of do it naturally as a kid. We just don't know it. If we're open as children, because I have memories and experiences since I was a kid. I was raised in a Catholic family, but my parents were not good Catholics, but my grandmother was. And so when we lived with my sister and I lived with my grandmother after my parents' divorce, it was pretty rigid. So I can relate a little bit to that. Yeah.
My family were Jehovah's Witnesses, and many of them still are. So we don't talk about anything other than the weather or gardening. They see me as like a life coach online, I think, some kind of counselor or something. I don't know. They might know that I do galactic astrology. I'm sure they think it's of the devil, but I'm waiting for them to pass on so that I can talk to them. I know that sounds kind of creepy, but
no, it does not to me.
The older generation, like one of my great aunts recently passed away, and I feel like I don't know, I couldn't talk to her on Earth, but off Earth, she knows the truth now.
Right.
That this isn't all there is, and that's what they believe, is that this is all there is.
Well, my biological dad, who was an atheist, and his mother, the grandmother, is who we lived with for a while. I would say he's agnostic, but he basically was he's leaned toward atheism. That's right. And and he would have conversations because I started remembering my own abilities, right, as a psychic medium and intuitive and all that. And he would say, "Oh, psychics, they're just scam artists. You go to school to learn how to scam people. And when you're dead, you're worm food." He would say things like that. We'd have these debates, And I said, "That's all right, Dad. When we meet on the other side, I will have the last laugh, okay?" Yeah, all right. Because he's like, you don't have a soul, you don't continue on, you're worm food. And when he passed, which was in 2003, so it wasn't long after we were having those discussions, he appeared to me just as bright and clear as I see you now. When my sister and I were on the way to his memorial service, and he's sitting on a bar stool at his favorite pub, wearing a dunce cap on his head, one of those caps that said dunce. In other words, you were right.
That's amazing. That's amazing. We were taught that when you die, it's just nothingness, blackness. And then eventually God would resurrect everyone and judge them, like Armageddon. But they basically believe when you pass away, you're just asleep, like nothingness.